We are going to end our session with a bang. Some unprecedented insights, some unprecedented growth, some real findings and ways in which working together and utilizing AI analytics, and of course, our teams, people, structure, and how we get things done. Much of which we spoke about through different areas today. We're going to bring home and put a bow on an amazing day. And I say amazing because I've heard from many of you what you have. You've connected with your teams who have joined virtually. You're here. I heard the conversations at lunch. So with that, I want to introduce our panel. And I'm here with Andre Romero, Vice President, US Mandalay. I'm here with Lynn Hemmons, Vice President, Analytics and Customer, Hershey. And Steve DeAngelis, CEO, Founder, Enterra Solutions. We want to go through today what's possible and what's being accomplished now. Each of our panelists have had experiences in the industry, in and around high-level mathematics, in and around getting things done with teams across functions and achieving results. So I want to ask our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, and we'll go forward from there. I'll start right next to me. Andre?
Great. So Andre Romero, I think I've met quite a few of you. I'm at Mondelez right now, leading revenue growth management for the US. And I've had multiple kind of similar stops, most recently at Reynolds and at Campbell and Dr. Pepper Snapple as well.
Fantastic. Lynn?
Lynn Hemmons. I'm currently at the Hershey Company. I've been there for about 4 years, and under my remit has been strategic revenue growth management, consumer intelligence, audience insights, business intelligence, and before that, I was with Yum Brands for 27 years, specifically the Taco Bell brand running intelligence, so sales intelligence, operational intelligence, and consumer intelligence.
I'm Steve DeAngelis. Most of you met me. I'm the founder, CEO of Enterra Solutions, and happy to be here today on the panel with Lynn and Andre.
Fantastic. So welcome. Today we talked about journeys through our processes, our people, journeys through our systems, etc. But let's begin the conversation talking about your personal evolution and your personal journey that brings you here today, and your passion and your enthusiasm and expertise. Andre? Kick us off. Tell us about your personal journey to get here today.
Sure. It's funny. I have a lot of folks here who work with me in 4 different organizations. So I worried I'm going to get called BS on what I'm about to say. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got like I have folks who 10 years ago, 7 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago. So very risky what I'm about to say. But I was thinking about this, and there's been a lot of discussions and papers on terms of how leaders need to evolve. I came up with my own version. I'll call it the Roadrunner and the Coyote, or the Wile E. Coyote. And I feel like back, pre-COVID, pre all the the uncertainty, the turbulence, things were relatively stable. And so I feel like back then, and again, maybe some of my Dr. Pepper folks can attest, we were like the Roadrunner. We're just running really fast. Right? And we're just kind of knowing where we're moving as fast as we could. And then over the last few years, the last couple of stops, and all these things that have happened and changed, now you feel like you're the Coyote. And one, not because there's always the cliff you're about to fall over, not because of that, but because of things like, if you think about the Coyote, he knows what he wants, right? He's got the clarity, but then he's also he's also experimenting a lot, and he's learning a lot, and he's adapting. They never really work, but I mean, the analogy is still there. They're always kind of adapting and trying to figure out new solutions. And so I'll look to some of my current team members. I think that's what we're trying to do as a team, and that's what I'm trying to do as a leader.
Outstanding, outstanding. Lynn?
Yeah, my journey's been pretty interesting. I have a few degrees, but the one that I love the most is math. And unfortunately, STEM was not, a word when I was going to school. And so I wound up getting all these other degrees, but I've always had a love for math and a love for data. And I think one of the pivot points that happened early on in my career happened when I was with Yum Brands. when we owned the forecast of the company and we wanted to understand what was going on. And we had data, but we didn't have granular data. And so there's something called transaction level detail. And we actually created one of the first versions in the United States in 1997. And it cost us $1 million and we paid it back in 48 hours. And I really understood the power of transformation when you can take information and fundamentally kind of change the course of business. So it's really been a passion of mine ever since that point.
Outstanding. And Steve, yours.
Well, the interesting thing is, we have, both me and our company have evolved as a national security, from being a national security contractor to a firm heavily engrossed in the consumer industries. So moving from predicting behaviors of bad guys to predicting behaviors of consumers has been a very interesting journey. But I think, one of the most satisfying and interesting parts of my job is I get to lead a team of highly talented individuals who are able to translate fundamental research from the university and the government settings to the commercial sector to build transformational applications. And that has been, a wildly, stimulating and exciting journey as we moved, like I said, from a government contractor to a commercial enterprise.
Fantastic, fantastic. We came up with this question as we were just in a dialogue, and I mentioned that I'd actually like to ask it on the panel, so I'll read it to you verbatim. How do AI and the general conversation of advanced analytics truly change the game for leading manufacturers? Lynn?
Sure, thank you. I will have to give a nod to my friend sitting next to me on this answer. When you take, for instance, trade and trade optimization. When you think about the art of the possible, it would be great if one could do it very quickly. We could optimize for revenue, we could optimize for share, we could optimize for volume, depending upon what was going on. But when you think about all the steps involved and all the people involved to go from a concept to selling into the retail to measuring it on the back end, there's a lot associated with that. But what happens if you could automate a lot of that? What happens if you could use AI to understand constraints, whether they be retailer constraints, whether they be your own constraints? What happens if you could take trade optimization calendars, which would typically take several weeks to produce, in a matter of seconds? That's transformational. And so, as I mentioned, I have a passion for transformation, and we've been working with Enterra to go from where we were to basically the art of the possible.
Outstanding. Andre, as long as we know each other, I know you're passionate about advanced analytics, and share with us.
Sure. I'll share like an example as well. I don't know, is Mike here from my Reynolds team? No? Okay, can't see, the lights are a little bright. But so when we were in my last role, so you said transaction data. One of the things that we talk a lot about in RGM is responsiveness, right? Like pricing responsiveness. If I only knew where elasticity was higher or lower, I could make the better decisions. I could put money in places, take money out, optimize my spends. And one of the things that we had great access to in my last role in tobacco was transactional data at the store level, at the literally down to the second detail. And we thought, what if with the right kind of analytics, whether you call it AI or not, but the right analytics, what if we could tell store by store the right price for our products in each store? And that's a question that's really kind of difficult to answer historically, but because we had 80,000 stores where we had every transaction, we said, why don't we just try it? So we did that. We threw it into, again, an AI model or however you call it. And we actually came up with, for each of our brands, for each of our packs, 120,000 elasticities. Literally for every store had a different elasticity. And we're able to literally price differentially across the street from each other and say, this store has more responsiveness than that store. And not to throw the big numbers out there, but if you think about doing that on, a $3 or $4 billion trade spend on pricing on 120,000 stores, it adds up very, very quickly. And I think the great thing about it was when we went to the retailer, it made a lot of sense to them too. It's like, well, why should my price be the same in all my stores? 7-Eleven has 10,000 stores across the United States. They didn't all need to have the same price, much less even if they were within the same city. And they saw the value of it too. So I think we'll probably talk more about how you kind of drive the value with it. But that's a real live example of being able to kind of take the data that we now have, which we didn't have before, and try to get to the most kind of precision, the most granularity you can have to optimize what you're trying to do.
Outstanding, outstanding. As a follow-up, Steve, with your background, we saw earlier at the Lightning Talk the intelligent agent. What role does an intelligent agent, math science, have around this that truly changes the game?
Well, Lynn's company and Andre's company and our other clients are really big companies, and they have a lot of data. And one of the things we want to do is be able to build highly accurate, highly feasible recommendations at the speed of the marketplace. So being able to do what Lynn and Andre just spoke about, but at the speed of the market in a way that it is reliable, it is explainable, right? Because you have to have explainability to build trust, and allows you to drive alpha or drive growth, is something that we get very, very passionate about. Now, the use of an intelligent agent is an interesting concept, because what you're able to do today using substantive AI, Enterra uses a form of artificial intelligence called symbolic AI. And what it does is it's a human-like reasoning capability. If you think about a pyramid, right? The bottom layer of the pyramid are the rote decisions that a machine can make in a reliable basis to speed up the actions. The next level above that are the decisions that the machine can make, but require a human to check the box and validate that this is the right decision. And then the top of the pyramid are the decisions that the machine can't make by itself, but it could very, very quickly assemble the data package such that it speeds the human in their decision-making process. So speed to decisioning equals market agility and the ability to generate profit and growth at a time that your competitors might not be able to. And that's amplified over the last 3 years, where we've had uncertainty, both COVID, we had inflation. A lot of young people have never experienced inflation before in their careers. And then we had, agricultural supply chain challenges as a result of Russia's war in Ukraine. All of those things are cascading the way that companies operate. So if you can act nimbly and execute at the speed of the market, we think it will create competitive advantage. And we think AI could be a fundamental enabler of the next generation epoch in that capability.
And I will put a fine point on that and add, we can't hire enough people to do this. It's impossible. And the speed in which you can use this technology is game changing.
Fantastic. The human plus AI interaction is evolving. Both of you are speaking to that. Leads us perfectly into the next question, which is approaching this with cross-functional teams. You have a lot of experience with this, everybody on the stage, and for growth. How are you approaching cross-functional teams and this type of scenario?
It's actually a really timely question. You're all probably wondering why I'm dressed like this. I was in Nashville this morning talking to our sales leadership, so I figured I was in Nashville. They played Johnny Cash's my walk-on music, so I said I might as well. So I was there, and I was talking to our sales folks for our channels, our finance team, some of our brand people, and I was trying to explain to them one of the initiatives that we're trying to do when it came to AI and some of the things that we're trying to optimize, particularly in revenue growth management. And I actually shared a chart that literally I think I built on a plane yesterday. But it was a great chart in terms of at least explaining RGM, but it wasn't the point. That what actually really worked well with them was how we kind of talked about what the roles they played in the chart. So it's how do you kind of relate to, yes, the AI can do a lot of things, but how does it help them, right? How does it help them do their job? How does it help them partner with their customers? How does it help the finance people understand the implications of it? I think that's the part for me as I think about all the things we're trying to do. And I got some of my team members, we're trying to build all this AI. But a lot of times, you have an audience that are like, what? I don't know. I'm not really sure what you mean. And so I've kind of even flipped it. I've talked to our insights, our analytics and insights team, and I'm like, no, we got to flip it to the insight and then the analytics, and kind of help what does this mean for me? What does pricing really mean for me? What does trade optimization really mean for me? And I think I got actually as I ran out the door to try to catch my plane back here, I had a lot of people come up and say, no, I've never kind of thought about not just RGM, but then AI with RGM in that way before. And now oh, I can see how that helps me.
Sure. Lynn, you're moving at incredible speed. How did the teams cross-functionally begin to adapt and handle this?
I would say in my old world when I worked for Yum, and we had all the data and we could put everything together, it was amazing the insights that you could produce. And then I had the honor and the privilege of coming to Hershey, and I was asked to put the consumer front and center. And so I said, okay, great, that's awesome. And then we have a trade budget, and then we have merchandising here, and we have advertising over here, and we work with our retailers. And I was like, but everything is in service of the consumer to grow our brands. And so how do we work more matrix? How do we put that all together to figure out, hey, when is it appropriate to have merchandising? When is it appropriate to have advertising? And I think the more that we can put that together at speed and understand what it means, basically personalization at the ID level, I think it is going to unlock a tremendous amount of value.
Fantastic. And Steve, you're across mathematicians, you're across consumer goods in your team. How are you bringing the team together around these scenarios?
It's interesting. Maybe I'll give the lens through a client engagements. I mean, one of the things that we have found is that the AI is, don't think of the AI as, and we talk about autonomy. If you saw my video today, it was all about bringing the concept of autonomy to the enterprise. But it's autonomy not to replace a human, but to augment what the human's doing, so the human can make better, higher order choices in decisions. Much like Andre was just saying, we want to focus on what the application of the insight is to the business. And we've had some very interesting conversations with Andre and his team about the strategic aspect of how to take, wildly advanced analytics and use it to develop better strategic decisions across the enterprise. And one of the things that we had found in our work is that the AI has a lot of unintended consequence positive users. When we first started working on one of our clients, we thought there'd be about 50 people totally trained on the use of the artificial intelligence. Our system, you saw this morning, the trade planning portion of the trade promotion optimization portion. There's over 700 plus people trained on that system today in a company in the United States. And we think about it, we thought there'd be 50, there's 700. Now, part of it's because it becomes a de facto optimization platform of record. But at the end of the day, though, it's facilitating better business choices. So groups that we thought would never play a role with that AI are using it so they can make better strategic choices. So it's a very interesting way that don't think about AI as an eliminator of jobs. Think of it as an enabler of analytics so you can do your job better and more strategically.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that. I think, there is that worry that it's a limiter, right? It limits, but it's more of an impact. It's an empowerment.
Right.
When we were talking again, I was talking to that team this morning. It's like now you can actually make decisions that grow, whatever it is that optimize what you're trying to do, grow the revenue of the company essentially.
Right.
Where today, that's difficult to do because there's all the variables, and we even showed them a case example. Here's an example of a trade plan that took 120,000 scenarios to optimize. Think about the power that you now have those in your hand, and then you can then go in and say, okay, that makes more sense to me, and that makes more sense for my retailer, and now you have all the time to think about it rather than do the rote part of let me run 10 scenarios, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's the part that's when you first talk about it, and I'm curious how it worked at Hershey. You get that first initial, oh my gosh, what is this, and what is it going to do to me? But if you get them to the other side of, no, I see how this makes me better. I think that's sort of the key to it, right?
I would add a couple things. I would say a design with human-centered understanding on what it means to the end user and how easy it could make our jobs, as Andre mentioned, to think as opposed to do.
Right.
It's completely game-changing. And what's interesting too about AI, and you guys are probably, you've read all about it, the application gets smarter over time. Because you figure out what the opportunities are, you figure out what the constraints are, you model that in, and it just gets smarter. So that smartness means it becomes faster in order for our sales team to sell in because it's already got the information in the ecosystem. Exactly. And so it's not something that you just do and it pays back 1 year, it pays back multiple years.
Well, do we have time?
Yeah.
So one of the other things that is interesting is that one of the key markers of an autonomous system is, does the company delegate a decision right to the system itself? Is it reliable enough that you're going to delegate that decision right to the system? You all are on airplanes, you delegate autopilot all the time. You're seeing self-driving cars, you're delegating that decision right to a self-driving car. In these particular cases, you find that the enterprise is delegating certain decisions to the AI because it could do it faster, more reliably, without human bias. The other thing is it fosters collaboration. So in the world of which you want to bring in people using that, last year was a key example. The AI was able to optimize trade plans so reliably that the retailer counterpart of our CPG client had hypotheses about pricing that they wanted to hypothesize about. So they asked our client, could you run it through your system and see what the outcome is going to be? That fostering of collaboration enables joint business planning now between the manufacturer and the retailer. So you've got AI now think of it as a connective bridge that connects the manufacturer to their retail partners in the next generation way by sharing access to an insight and doing something of value with the data that the retailer provides you.
Okay, I'll add on to that one as well.
Oh, but I was about to jump into it.
Yeah, we got time.
And this day will come very, very quickly, but there will be a day when the dashboards are dead, that you can basically you can go into your data warehouse, very similar to that you use Google, ask a question, pull up a dashboard, drill down, and what will happen is we're going to have meetings where that's happening, where we have massive collaboration and decision-making in real time in the meetings. But to get there, you're going to need the information, you're going to need to put it together, but that day is coming very shortly.
Fantastic. Andre?
I think you just described my dream too. So,
democratize the data.
Yeah, and I think I happen to be in like a commercial team where you got your sales and your marketing. So when you said collaboration between retail, I even looked at it internally. Right. Like you've got the marketing number, you got the sales number. We're going to hit 3.0 or 4.5, and which one's true? Like even that idea of let it run it, and then let's kind of debate the merits of it versus. I had this analogy, folks like myself in these types of roles, you probably feel too, like, you got the sales and the marketing on both sides, and who has the better lawyer in the meeting, who presents better, cases and facts and wins and you're, the boss is a judge and, that I'm going to rule in their favor. Like that shouldn't exist anymore, right? I think that the data should get you there, but today, because it's not, it's not as easy, and then you get all these different people coming at it from different ways. And that just creates a lot of like unnecessary churn, to be honest.
Fascinating. You bring that up. So does this simplify things, make it more complex, Lynn? Where does it meet?
I personally think it simplifies. And it simplifies because you can make decisions in real time that gives you the ability then to look further ahead, to set your strategy that much further ahead so you can plan on what's about to happen as opposed to just figuring out what's happening the next week, the next month, et cetera. And the further out we can get on planning and the better strategy that we can set will show up in the marketplace in a more meaningful way and be able to grow our revenue, grow our profit, steal share.
Very cool. Very cool. Leads us to the next question. And Andre, you were talking earlier about the Roadrunner. Tom Furphy, our keynote this morning, was talking about collaboration. So our conversation before brings that to a head. Is fantastic. But Andre, as the Roadrunner, how do you and organizations? What?
I'm the Coyote now. I was the Roadrunner.
Yeah, we got to we're going to have to go back northeast and reinvent Acme.
Yeah.
but as
is Acme here?
No, I'd never make that mistake in 15 years. But anyway, with these moving from Roadrunner to Coyote, anywhere in between, how do you manage short-term goals and growth goals with long-term vision and plans?
That's a tough one. I'll probably go to what you were saying. I think having the information that tells you what short and long-term looks like helps, right? I think, we struggle doing long-term because we don't even know how to get past tomorrow. I think that's a lot of this, that's literally that embroils us every day. And a lot of it is because, again, the data and the information may or may not be as accessible. you're even doing backwards. You're not even talking about tomorrow. You're not even talking about it. You're like, what happened, right? And I was just recently in a call, like, what happened to October? Like, don't know what. I mean, we're all struggling with what happened to October, but then you're sitting there, you're missing the fact, like, well, okay, it's November. Like, why are we talking about October? And let's talk about Q1 and then really 2030 and 2025. But I think because just asking that question, I think to your point, like describing what the dream is, I'm in that meeting, and you've got your EVPs and your CS, and you can't answer the question fast enough, right? And you can't quite understand what's going on. So you're struggling with, let's just solve this and let's just solve the burning thing that's in front of us, because you can't get past it fast enough to understand what's going on. And you can't talk about the future because you're just embroiled with analyzing not just now, but the past as well.
Certainly, certainly. And Lynn, you take this next, but it sounds like from how you answered before, you're doing more responding than reacting these days.
That is the goal. I'm not saying we're there yet. What I would say is I kind of call this sales overnight, brand over time, because you always have to make your numbers overnight, but we do need to set ourselves up for success over time. And so I kind of call it, you're building the plane as you're flying it. I had one of my responsibilities at Yum, specifically the Taco Bell division, was my department owned the forecast of the company for 20 years. When you have to forecast a company for 20 years, you realize you need to take a very long-term perspective in order to get that to set strategy. But at the same time, you owe numbers to Yum and you know numbers to Wall Street, you need to make sure you hit those numbers. And so constantly figuring out where the future is going so you can be present, but still getting the job done today. Yeah, it's a fine balance between getting that done.
Sure. Steve?
So we see our role in helping enable what Andre and Lynn were just talking about is from a short-term perspective, we want to get so fast and so reliable in optimizing now in minutes versus weeks that we could optimize your promo, optimize your price on the short-term basis. But the business wargaming capability provides you a structural means that you could run scenarios that you think are going to affect your business. Run the scenarios, have the wargaming system scan the marketplace, identify both competitive opportunities and risk mitigation requirements, and then have that used as the platform through which Andre and Lynn can do the short and long-term planning through. So I think that one of the things you want to do is make the planning processes less expensive in terms of people, process, technology, financial cost, but also give them a fertile platform through which they can model this in a reliably quick way.
Yeah, I think for me too, it's like I'll go back to the insights and then the analytics part of it, right? I think how does it help us understand as well? Because I think that's where, again, when things are not happening the way you expect and you're not dealing, like, why did it happen? And then gets to the analytics of then here's what you can do, here's the price you can optimize as a promo. But even why did October perform the way it did, or why did last quarter perform the way it did? Then getting to that answer faster as well. Getting to the why first, and then getting to the what do we do about it. I think both of those have to come hand in hand, which is where the technology answers both faster.
That is one of the things, quite frankly, that so the professor side, math. I'm not a professor. Math tells you what's happening. The AI, the reasoning-based AI's capabilities tell you why it's happening. And understanding the why or the environmental conditions under which a decision is made, and then the efficacy of that decision and why the outcome happened the way it was, is what AI is super good at doing. So I think you want to think about, when you think about using whatever form of artificial intelligence, you want to make sure that you design the AI in a way that it is able to generate the why to support the what that you're getting from mathematics.
And I would add, because we've talked a lot about ones and zeros, there is so much you can do with text analytics and AI, and you can take that to a whole new level. So don't forget that, because our imagination is now our only limitation, and we can get data from everywhere.
So leads us to this next question, which I love. Lynn, you take this one first. What is truly to be gained when we talk about and achieving breakthrough growth?
I can tell you what I've seen.
Yeah.
I've seen revenue growth. I've seen profit growth. I've seen share growth. and getting after it in a meaningful way, you have to start. This is scary to all of us. You just start, and it keeps building, and you have wins, and you keep going. And the other thing I would say is definitely it changes the way we work, and be very, very mindful of that, because we can all build amazing things, but if they don't get adopted and used, we probably shouldn't have even started to begin with. So there's kind of a tension point between those.
You feel like you're kind of making history?
Me?
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm making history. I wake up every morning, I'm still there, I say I'm making history. No. One of the things as a vendor is your job is to make money for your clients. And our job, we believe at Enterra, is to drive alpha for our clients. Our clients are good at managing their expenses, but they want a partner that could help them drive alpha. So at the end of the day, to answer your question, Michael, our job is to help make our clients unicorn valuations in their market space. Period, end of story. If we can help drive value, drive growth and profit, they will get more highly valued in the marketplace than their peer group. And that, at the end of the day, when you work for a CFO, when you work for other folks, that's how they measure the outcomes. Or a key way of measuring the ultimate outcome is, how do you help drive growth and profit in the company, which translates into market valuation.
Cool. And Andre, you've always,
Sure.
as long as we've known each other, you've been at the forefront after breakthrough growth.
Well, I think I've had a title of revenue growth for a while. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's inherent in revenue growth management that we need to do this. Because I think some of you have heard one of my previous presentations. Like, RGM is really simple, right? Sell more stuff, sell it for more, sell more expensive stuff. Like, this will help you do all of those, and actually, ideally, help you do all three at the same time very, very well, right? Because I think some folks do one part of RGM well, other parts do other parts of RGM well, whether it's pricing or promo or trade. It's how you do all the five. Dave and I talk about the 5 levers all the time, right? How do you do all 5 levers of RGM really, really well? And again, it's inherent in our practice, in our field, to go do this, because we have to continue to do it. Otherwise, we're no longer revenue growth management, right? It's I joke, it's like maybe it's the volume growth management or profit, but whichever it is. But it's inherently, we have to keep improving, get granularity, precision, get faster, to do all the pieces well, to continue driving the growth of the company.
Absolutely. Lynn, you look like you had something to add to that on, your
I
experience.
agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Very, very, very cool. I have another question for the panel, but it's your turn. A question from the audience? Yes.
I'll speak up.
Yeah. Now Bella's coming right over.
That's fine. I can speak up. Thank you guys for speaking. I appreciate, Lynn, I believe you talked about what you've seen with these breakthrough kind of advances in RGM. And growth, volume, profit, great for us manufacturers here in the building. But how does that translate to consumer benefits?
You said, how does it translate to consumer value?
Consumer benefits, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As a benefit to consumer.
Consumer lifetime value, I think, is an important concept. And that kind of changes over time, especially with jobs to be done, occasions, et cetera. So the better one can understand that, the outcome is revenue and profit and share, et cetera. So to me, the reason why I was kind of smiling, and Mike, you asked me if I had a question, because I was like, should we call it revenue growth management, or should we call it consumer growth management? Because I really believe putting the consumer front and center, the rest of it is the outcome.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. That's funny. The exact same question got asked this morning when I was in Nashville. So I'm going to take a second version of the answer this time. I think if you look at revenue growth management, all the levers, the question was phrased more from the retailer, but to much point the consumer. In theory, again, if we do all those things together, things like price pack architecture, it's actually giving the consumer what they want, where they want it, how they want it, when they need it, right? If you think about promotions, it's the same thing, giving them the price and the promo that they want, when they need it. You can't actually drive revenue growth management without consumer growth management. It doesn't work. Now, the last years have probably biased us in a different way in terms of pricing and all those things, but I'd even say it still actually supports it because the consumer is willing to buy your brand, or they haven't, or they've left your brand. And we have brands that are suffering because it's not holding, right? We're losing heavy shoppers, we're losing light shoppers, household penetration's down. All of those levers of RGM, to sell more stuff, sell it for more, sell more expensive stuff, it still starts with, are you getting more consumers? Are they buying more often? Are they buying more when they go shop? All those pieces, you're still maximizing that. Otherwise, there is no revenue growth management without maximizing that part of it.
Cool, cool. Got time for another question?
Nope, one
Yes,
back there.
in the middle. Go ahead.
Oh, one there. Yeah, go. There's.
So first of all, fascinating. I love it. I've been in the space for a long time, so to hear this is exciting. I'm just curious from the retailer's perspective. When you go to the retailer with different recommendations than you've had in the past, and maybe some of them are really may seem out in left field to them, how have you gone about, what's been your experience about getting retailer buy-in with doing different things that they've never done before?
I mean, similar to what I said, right? I think it goes back to what are you solving for them? I think some retailers are challenged with traffic right now. Right? Ideally, your whether it's your trade architecture or price pack architecture solves that, right? Your brand investments, your promos drive that. It still goes back to the revenue growth for us is in theory revenue growth for them. In theory, satisfying consumer needs. I'd always like whenever we have a new product or a new package, we go back. Well, this package solves this need for this consumer in your store, which drives this conversion, which drives this share of wallet. Otherwise, again, you can't. Revenue growth doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I would reinforce that dialogue needs to happen.
Yeah.
And our sales team does an amazing job with our retailers and has a great relationship. But when that dialogue happens, then we can turn around and say, you know what? This is the calendar I think that it fits our retailers the best. We can go back and create that calendar.
Right.
So to me, it's going to foster a tighter relationship, especially when we understand retailer constraints and we understand Hershey constraints. And we can put all that and model that so we can get a 1 + 1 = 3, as opposed to, maybe what we've had in the past, which is like, hey, I think this would work.
Right.
From a tech player's perspective, the way that we engage with retailers through our CPG manufacturers is doing something of value with the data, so the retailer's willing to give the manufacturer more data to use. So for us, we have to do something of value with it to justify the retailer sharing more data with the manufacturing company.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a specific example. Like, there's probably a lot of folks here on TPM journeys, right? We're on a TPM journey. We have a lot of TPM partners out there. But I'm always like, why haven't we had? And maybe there are. Why don't we have TPMs that they use too? Right? Like, why can't we use them together? And so they're in our why can't they be in our TPM modeling our plans in their retailer to drive their targets? And ultimately, what's the best business plan you're working on and go, hey, this makes sense. And I had some smaller, not quite AI examples of that, but that's ultimately where that works on both sides.
From a shared insights perspective, that's coming.
Yeah.
Cool. Had another question in the middle here?
Sure, yes. Well, thank you so much for the visualization through the future, right, of AI, and especially catch my attention. How do you see the importance of acquiring this technology for diversification of pricing? And you were mentioning that, Andrew, well, maybe in the future we will see pricing, different prices between the stores, right, and across the street, even because we have lots of data. So just understand more your perspective. How do you think that there is going to be a friction, or what will be the advantages of having diversification of pricing? Or is there any other maybe, I don't know, benefit for that situation that may come, and at the end, from the perspective of my company, for example, we are working on equalization, right, to be fair and equitable. So what will be the challenges that we will see while we differentiate the pricing between locations?
I mean, I'll take the first, the way I look at it, right? I go back to the pricing is the right for the consumer at the time. So what I described, one is reality, and we all actually already live it, right? Think about how many a retailer app on their phone, like a Target app or how many get offers on those apps, right? And it's different offers depending on the day and the product that you buy based on what you've bought before, right? Like, that's already happening. We're already down to personalized consumer pricing in many things, right? And it's more about, again, what's the pricing that drives my behavior and the things that I'm looking for versus, say, I'll point at Wayne, who's in my team. Like, we can both walk into the same store, right? I have 4 kids. My needs are going to be very different in terms of the sizes of I'm buying. I mean, I'm buying the biggest party size of Oreo every time, even though I guess my house is a party every day. But I mean, I'm getting the party size because that's my need. And that's the pricing I would be looking for. And that's the pricing that my app gives me, right? Versus he doesn't have 4, and his pricing is more core size or maybe even single size, single pack, right? I think that the idea of granularity and targeted pricing is already there. How do we just activate it more in the traditional brick and mortar versus where today it already exists in digital?
Other thoughts on this? But I have one for you. Lynn, this goes to you. I think you mentioned AI of the future. Is it today?
It's today.
It's today.
All the stuff that we talked about is happening now. And you can find it in pockets across organizations, quite frankly, across the globe.
Fantastic. Final thoughts. Steve?
Well, AI of the future is, like we tried to say throughout the session, it is today. It is using the ensemble of mathematics, reasoning-based AI, optimization, and knowing how to do that with a degree of tradecraft to know how to apply it against the business problems is the art of this whole thing, right? It's not just utilizing, tools in a ubiquitous way or a indiscriminate way. It's knowing how to accurately apply those tools to the use cases that are going to drive value in your organization. But it's going to be a geometric rise as you see ChatGPTs and other things enabling pieces of the market, and quantum computers enabling another piece of the market. And you'll start to see artificial general intelligence come out where it's a reliable and agent, like you saw in the video this morning. These are the kinds of things that are going to change the way that businesses operate. And I think it's going to facilitate a reinvention of the organization.
Outstanding. Any final thoughts across the panel?
I would say just start.
Nice.
And you know what? Comparatively, it's actually not that expensive. And the benefits on the back end are pretty game changing.
Cool. Andre?
Couldn't agree more with the 2 of them.
Fantastic. Well, a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you all. Exceptional, appreciate it, and a great way to round out our day. Outstanding, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You even got the name.
I even got it right.